Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Monday. This is episode 3 and I have another update on the status, the progress of the Great Mordian Restoration Project. For those of you that are unfamiliar with this series, it is relatively new. It's essentially where I blog, I record for the Departamento Minitorum, the progress on the restoration of my Mordian 50s rifles, which are the principal army of this channel. Essentially, guys, my Mordian army was very, very battered after a decade and a half, if not longer, of continuous fighting, continuous use, and so I've decided it's time to, after over a decade, over 15 years of service to the Emperor, my main army, the Mordians, they need a bit of a revamp. So they're getting a new colour scheme, and I've talked about what the colour scheme is in my previous videos. And today we're going to be talking about a couple of other things. We're going to namely be talking... Well, we're going to try and talk about Voxcasters. Do you think they're necessary? But we'll get to that in a moment. First off, what progress have I made this week? Well, despite the fact that I have been also doing a huge amount of basing for my Genestealer cult, and I've got about 50 models based in a week, it's very simple, the basing I do for my cult, to be honest. Despite that, I actually also found time to fully complete a squad of converted Cadians. So I have another squad completed. This squad is more of an assault squad. So it's armed with a flamer. No heavy weapon in that unit. So the first 2 units that I did were more sort of traditional line infantry squads. They had a heavy weapon, one had a missile launcher, one had a las cannon, and both had grenade launchers. This squad, I decided I wanted it to be lightweight, flexible, stay on the move, more assault based. So I decided just a flamer, good old, just can't go wrong with the good old flamer. Now they've gone down a point as well. They're only 6 points. They're pretty good. There's a few interesting conversions in this unit. First off, the main conversion part that I use is I bought a set of the Anvil Industry Parade Ground caps. I only bought one set because I wanted to test them to see how they looked, especially in comparison to the Victoria miniature hats, which I have on one of my previous squads. In fact, the first squad I completed for the Great Mod Restoration Project, which wasn't an infantry squad, it was a veteran squad that a absolutely fantastic supporter of the channel sent to me, custom-made veteran squad. Amazing, thank you once again. But he had used Victoria miniature hats, parade caps, and I thought, well, let's buy some of the the Anvil Industry ones, because that's a little easier for me to get my hands on, because Anvil Industry is a British base, so the postage is a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. So I just bought the one pack, and you get 7 in a pack. Obviously, there's a 10-man squad, so there was a bit of improvisation that had to be done. But first things first, I want to say, absolutely fantastic quality on these heads. Really, really good. You actually get 2 style of heads in the box, 2 style of caps. You get 5 regular parade caps, which instead of having an Imperial Eagle on the front, they've got like a golden bar, which is a little because I'd rather it was an eagle. And you get 2 what they call officer hats, which basically have an Imperial Eagle on the front. So, but you can't really tell the difference apart from there's 2 different symbols. Now, what I did is I gave my officer hats to the specialists in the squad, the Voxcaster and the Flamer. And then the sergeant for the unit is all Games Workshop parts. His head is just, I think it's a head from the tank upgrade kit. And then one of the guys is which is on the screen now, is one of the old metal Cadian medics. And one of the guys is from the command sprue, the one without the hat with sort of slicked back hair. And the remaining 5 are the 5 other Anvil Industry hats, which just have the gold bar on the top. Now, first things first, comparison of So that's their sort of the bits of using the squads. First things first, before we get too much into the different bits I used, let's compare the Anvil Industry heads to the Victoria Miniature heads. They are different. They are significantly different. The Victoria Miniature heads are the caps especially are smaller, much smaller. In fact, they are, I would say, almost a bit like, they're almost like flat caps. Almost, they're not, but that's what they remind me of. They're small, realistically proportioned, being honest, peaked caps. Whereas the Anvil Industry ones are a bit more 40k, if I'm going to be honest with you. They're on like mutton chops and stuff. There's bionic eyes as well. So the interesting thing is that the Victoria Miniature ones remind me more of sort of German World War One, not German World War One, World War Two sort of Volksgrenadier caps. A little bit more fancy than that, and the Anvil Industry ones are basically bigger, bolder, but traditional Mordian Iron Guard hats. The flip side on this is that the Victoria Miniature hats, every single one of them has got an eagle on it, whereas on the Anvil Industries, obviously they played a bit safe on the copyright front, and they don't have Imperial Eagles on. On the other side, which is obviously, you'd rather you had eagles on your hats. On the other side, I found the Anvil Industry heads to be a much higher consistent quality than the Victoria Miniature ones. I have to say, the Victoria Miniature heads are a little rough around the edges, guys. They're not as smooth. Lots of little bits, and they're not as sci-fi as well. So that's sort of another point in the favour of the Anvil ones, which was there's guys with bionic eyes and stuff. There are not guys with bionic eyes in the Victoria Miniature ones. There's one guy that has glasses on, but that's it. So I would say on balance they're basically equal. You just have to, do you want sort of more over the top parade caps, bigger, bolder, then go for the Anvil Industry ones. Do you want sort of smaller, neater, maybe a little bit more realistic? Go for Victoria Miniatures. I actually can't decide which ones I'm going to use going forward. I mean, I have a suspicion I might choose the Anvil Industry ones. They're just a bit more 40k, and they fit this. I feel like I don't know. I'll have to think about it a bit more, but I'm currently leaning towards Anvil Industries. So there you go. So that's almost like, a little bit of a comparison itself. Other parts that were used. So I had to do a bit of converting on this squad, obviously. The most of the parts are pretty standard. Like I said, the sergeant has a head from the tank commander sprue, and the guy in the back who hasn't got a cap on, I've got him with he's mostly made from command sprue parts, to be honest. So he has he's got the officer's chest, officer's chest from the command sprue box. He's got the lasgun on a sling from the command sprue box. He's got the pointing arm from the command sprue box. Instead of pointing, I've actually got it sort of. He's got it hung by his side, and there's a las pistol in his hand. Now, obviously, he can't take. Guardsmen don't get las pistols, but there's a lot of bits that I'm using in this squad which are there for rule of cool, and they don't get in the way of the model. So there's some cool conversion there. For example, this leads me on to the next part, which is obviously the medic. Now you can't take an official medipack in a guard squad. That is reserved only for the command squad. I know that, but I love this old metal medic model. He was released with the first, the first proper update of the Cadian models. I've had this particular medic model since the beginning of my army, 15 years. I've actually got a couple of them. I think I might even have 3. And I just figured he's got a las rifle. At the end of the day, the model is a guy with a las rifle. The medic stuff is just cool bits, and you would have in a lot of squads, you would have like a corpsman. You'd have a field medic whose job is just to, if someone gets injured, just to like stabilize them, not to get them back in the fight, just to stabilize them. So that's what I think. So I am just going to use him in there. And if anyone asks, one, I don't think anyone's going to notice because he's going to be one guardsman in a sea of 200 plus guardsmen. I don't think anyone's going to notice him. And 2, it means I get to use the model again, and I love the model. And 3, I think it adds a bit more character to the squad. This squad here, if you look at it, if you sort of if I would pause the video and take the time to look at the squad, there's a lot of character in this squad. You've got a sergeant who's got lots of little bits on him. The Voxcaster guy is actually subtly, his legs, if you notice, are not from the regular Cadian box. The legs on him are from the command box. You see, so that it does add a subtle. It's a completely different stance on that model. Completely different stance. So you've got that part. You've got the guy, like I said, who's not got his hat on, which is obviously a bit rare for Mordians. Who's got a las pistol? Where's he got the las pistol from? He's obviously a bit of an orthodox. I like to imagine that he's the corporal, or the lance corporal, leading the second part of the squad, and then you've got the medic. There's a lot of character in just one squad, and yeah, it's going to be lost in like a sea of like I said, 250 guardsmen, but it's still cool. It's still very cool. So that's the progress. I put a lot of effort into these guys, maybe a little bit more than I should have done. But like I said, I was really feeling it on the painting front, so I got a lot done. And it broke up the monotony of just doing basing after basing after basing on my GC look cool. Now, just sort of wrapping up this video. Getting on to sort of the second topic I want to talk about, which was what, as I said at the beginning, was Voxcasters. Now this squad, there is a Voxcaster in it, and I have for a long time maintained that Voxcasters are very much a situational tool to have. I'm still not entirely made up on it, but number one, I have plenty of Voxcaster models anyway, and I have plenty of regular riflemen. So if I ever decide that Voxcasters are rubbish, then I'll just swap that Voxcaster model out and put a normal one in, because all the Mordians are going to get redone eventually. All the Cadians are going to get converted eventually. But for the meantime, I am actually going to start using Voxcasters now. That might seem like madness, but I've never properly, seriously committed to them in a long time. I've dabbled with them here and there, but I've never really just been right for 2-3 months. I'm just Voxcasters everywhere. I feel, interestingly, they're actually going to become very important. Now, some of you are going to go, "That's madness. Why do you think you've poo-pooed Voxcasters for a while, Mordian Glory?" Well, hear me out. I don't think Voxcasters are necessary in a mechanized list, as I've demonstrated with my Steel Legion. You've pretty much always got an officer nearby to babysit. And I don't think officers are particularly... Voxcasters are needed in a armoured company, like I discussed in the previous videos where I did the armoured company list review. And I just said that the infantry there just to screen. And I don't think you necessarily need Voxcasters in a hybrid list, because you're only going to have about 100 infantry. You're going to probably have maxed out officers, 3 company commanders, 3 platoon commanders. So you're going to have, if you have 100, 120 infantry and you've got 9 orders to go around those 120 infantry, then you've got plenty of orders to go around. So you're always going to have an officer nearby to babysit a squad. In a pure infantry army, which is what my Mordians are, I'm starting to feel like Voxcasters might be very useful. Because the most orders I can get my hands on in a pure infantry Mordian army is 11. So I can get 6 from the company commanders. I can get 3 from the platoon commanders. And I can get 1 for inspired tactics, the stratagem. And I can get 1 more for the warlord trait, master of command. Like if I take Yarrick as well, for example. Yarrick has to take that warlord trait. So that's at most 11 orders I can issue a turn. But I'm going to be using a lot more than 11 squads of infantry. So I won't have officers which are going to be able to babysit squads as easily. And I have found, especially when playing on a wide deployment like Dawn of War, I have found that you do find yourself struggling to keep everyone in range. And I'm thinking I should just consider Voxcasters. Now, I don't think I'm going to put them on every single squad. I'll probably put them on every other squad. Because if I put them on every single squad, I'm thinking of running 18 units. 18 infantry squads, plus a few command squads, blah, blah, blah. I could be looking at running like 20 Voxcasters, which is 100 points. Which is a lot. Which is 5% of the total points in a 2k army going towards Voxcasters, which is a lot. So, I'm willing to chuck 50 points into Voxcasters. Because that is the equivalent of 1 infantry squad. 50 points, 1 infantry squad. With like, a flamer or something. Or like a heavy bolter or something, So it's not a huge loss. Because my sort of current list that I had in mind has got like 277 dudes in it. And I'm willing to trim that down. But that includes taking like 3 special weapon squads with grenade launchers just because I need to get as many infantry in the list as possible. So I'm willing to trim down some of that. Trim it down, I think, to about 250 guys. And the points that I save by not taking those sort of extra 17 dudes, I'm going to put into things like Voxcasters, like power weapons, for example. Because that's the shift I'm going with the army. I'm moving away from, psychic powers. I'm going back to my traditional Mordian army, which didn't use psychic powers. It relied on firepower and faith to win. And that's what we're going back to. So instead of psychers, there will be priests. So there you go. That's what I'm thinking. That's the thought behind it. And that way I'll be able to be a lot more aggressive with my infantry whilst being able to maintain safe distance from the enemy. Because one of the big problems that you can have as a guard commander, especially as an infantry commander, is in sort of that middle phase of the game, because your officers are on the front line and your front line squads have also been badly mauled, gaps start appearing, and your officers can get killed quite easily. And also, well, that's it basically. That's it. And obviously, there's a lot of Vindicares going around these days. So if I can have an officer out of line of sight next to a squad with a Voxcaster, then hopefully he'll be able to issue orders whilst remaining safe. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think overall? What about Voxcasters? Let me know what you think about the little conversions done on the squad. What do you think of that old school medic model? It's very different. Very different to the current medic model, which is a guy with like a bandage. I think this one looks cool, bit more sci-fi with his like wrist glove and all that kind of wrist-mounted surgery stuff. Very cool. But overall, guys, progress on the Mordians is going very well. In only a month, I have painted a veteran squad with 3 plasma guns, plasma pistol, and power sword. I have painted 3 infantry squads with las cannon, grenade launcher, power sword, missile launcher, grenade launcher, and flamer and vox, and the veteran has a vox as well. I have painted a officer with power sword and another officer with shotgun and las pistol. And I've got my 3 regimental advisors done as well. So, you know, I've got the makings of a platoon there. Realistically, I've got 42 infantry, which I'm definitely going to use. You know, with the 4 squads and the 2 officers and the advisors I may or may not use. But yeah, so I've got the makings of a platoon there, 42 guys. How many points do you reckon that is? I worked out, it's less than 350. 4 squads and 2 officers. It's insane. I love pure infantry guide. You get so much. I was there looking like, oh yeah, I must be getting close to being able to use them in a 500 point game now. Nope, I'm still 2 squads off. I still got 2 weeks before I'm going to be even thinking about using them in a 500 point game. Insanity. But that's why we love guard. That's why we love guard. So, hope you guys have enjoyed this update. Let me know what you think about Voxcasters. Let me know what you think about the progress on the Mordians. Next unit to be painted will either be another infantry squad, or it may be a command squad with a flamer and heavy bolter and voxcaster, possibly. That's what. So, which one would you rather see? Infantry squad. Let's go for another assault infantry squad. So do you want to see an infantry squad with a classic Mordian infantry squad with melter, classic genuine Mordian melter gun and las pistol and power sword, or do you want to see a command squad with heavy bolter, flamer and voxcaster? What do you want to see? Let me know down in the comments below, and of course I'll see you guys next time.